And we are live from day 2 of SEC Media Days. Lauren Sisler, Michael Casagrande, both with AL.com. We are hanging out in our lovely, well, it is a hotel room, not our hotel room.
Goodness.
But it is a hotel room here, here in Hoover at SEC Media Days. You know, this is where we do a lot of our interviews with folks because there's a lot of chaos that happens downstairs. We want to explain it to people. A lot of chaos that goes on downstairs. It's chaotic. There's a lot of noise. You know, it gets wild. I will say, Michael, come on, we're coming out of the gate strong. I will say to you, Michael, here day 2, a little bit different. So we had talked to you on the show yesterday, our live talk back here, day 2, or day 1, I should say. Let me ask you, like your thoughts, SEC Media Days, how has it been kind of different to you and maybe even the same, getting back here, a little bit back to school feeling? But how have things been a little different?
It's been quieter. There haven't been, the lobby obviously isn't full of people and fans and autographs and pictures. And, it's been more business this time.
More business, yes. Well, of course, again, you said no fans. There have been fans outside, though.
I've heard.
Periodically. Mm-hmm. They're not technically allowed in the lobby, but people have showed up, obviously watch coaches and players come off the bus or out of their cars or whatever they're at. So we're going to get into this, but I do want to thank our sponsors first and foremost. Alabama Career Center System. I can't do this with you because he doesn't take me seriously. Okay, y'all. So day 2, we're going to go through the list here because we had some fun comments that kind of came through. And that's sort of your job here, is to kind of go over some of the funny comments that have come down the pipeline. So this morning we had Kirby Smart. Obviously we had Georgia here. We have Tennessee. We have Kentucky. And then we have Ole Miss. Those were the 4 teams today. And some funny comments that kind of came down. What are a couple that you can share with us that you felt like coaches sort of played into what SEC Media Days is all about, which is giving us some headline material?
Right. No, I mean, it can be fun. A lot of times these are boring. These aren't always that interesting. But I think a few times today, I think Kirby Smart started it off when he talked about Quavo and getting a text from Quavo and accusing everyone in the room of not knowing who he was. But then when a player was asked about him, he says he's not sure that Kirby even knows if he's ever heard one song from Quavo. So that was kind of the back and forth of, and he called him Kirby, which was kind of funny, referring to him by the first name. But that was.
I call Kirby Curb.
Yeah, no, I think that happens.
And we'll get into that in a minute. We're going to segue nicely into that, y'all.
That was some foreshadowing.
Yeah,
the Kentucky player, Josh Pascal, talked about the time he made eye contact with Jennifer Lopez in a stairway, and she winked at him. So that was funny.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Lane Kiffin, of course, never disappoints when he steps to the podium. Referenced to Greg Sankey, the fine that he got for $25,000 last year for criticizing officials, and how that cut into his son's college fund.
And his son was in the hallways walking around. He was doing his thing.
Yep. There was a lot of Nick Saban talk with Lane, always giving credit to Nick Saban, his former employer. Was asked about weight loss at one point and thought that was a weird question. Talked about his Twitter persona. It was a good way to close out the day.
I enjoyed Lane Kiffin's comments because I know sometimes he gets up there and you kind of wonder like what direction he's going. And of course, when he was at Alabama, we didn't get to hear from him often. But as a head coach, you get to hear from him more often. Obviously, last year a little different. We didn't get to see him here in person because we didn't have SEC Media Days. But you kind of never know what you're going to get with Lane Kiffin. So that brings us to Lane Kiffin also getting asked about the NIL, name, image, likeness, and that reports came out. So basically, Nick Saban was talking to some Texas high school coaches, basically informed them that reports coming out, basically saying, not reports, I mean, Nick Saban kind of has the pulse of all this, but that Bryce Young, the Alabama quarterback, is on the verge of hitting $1 million in endorsements for the NIL. $1 million. So someone steps up to the plate and asks the question about the NIL.
Right. Mike Rodak, our colleague.
Mike Rodak, our colleague at AL.com, basically asked him, hey, are you aware of this? What are your thoughts? And I mean, Lane Kiffin said like, whoa, I kind of wanted to be braced for this. Like you could tell he was very caught off guard because, oh, by the way, like this is a real thing that's happening. Bryce Young hasn't even taken a snap of football this year. And oh, by the way, he's getting paid upwards of $1 million. So with that being said, just kind of your real thoughts on his response to that and some, funny takeaways from his overall viewpoint.
Yeah, it's not often you can really shake a coach with news up there where you can get them to where they go off script. He kind of looked over to his media relations guy and told him he wasn't prepared for this, so he was kind of filibustering, trying to think of a way to respond. He didn't really know what to say. And then I guess a few minutes later, he got asked another question. He went right back. He looked back over to Mike and was like, I'm still thinking about Bryce Young and the million, whatever, nearly $1 million, unverified. We don't know exactly what he's earned or what he's getting. But that was kind of the buzz of the day that.
And then he went on to say he didn't even need to play us this year. He's good.
Right. Yeah.
So you might as well just.
There's always that caveat.
Yeah. Go ahead and just put that money in a bank, invest it well. You done.
Right.
Check that box. So with that being said, obviously name, image, likeness has come up a lot. Just so what is your overall vibe and feeling from most of the coaches and what you're hearing from these guys about name, image, likeness and how that's going to impact the landscape of college football this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's obviously a big thing, and coaches, there's definitely a strategy to how they address it, how they feel about it. It's hard to really say exactly how they feel about it, but the cameras are always on, and I think it's always, if you're expressing a negative viewpoint of it, it will only be used against you in recruiting. So they're all supportive of it, which is, what you'd expect them to say.
What you would expect them to say. So that leads to our conversation about Nick Saban. Alabama will be coming through these hallways tomorrow. We get them in the afternoon. 4 more teams coming through. Alabama, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and Texas A&M. There we go. It all runs together, y'all. But hey, we're here. Back to school. Back to life, back to reality. So Nick Saban will be coming through. What are your expectations for tomorrow? Obviously there is some hype that comes, I feel like, especially here locally being in Hoover, that we get from Alabama coming through the hallways and obviously the reigning national champions.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of one of those things where you kind of wish you could have had this last year with all the star power that came through that would have been, in Alabama's delegation last year. John Mechie, Fedarian Mathis will be the 2 players who are coming. Obviously, Saban, I'm sure the offense will be a big talk, how they're rebuilding, how Bryce Young is handling off-season. We saw him in the spring. We saw him on 8A. But now it's for real. Now, they're counting down to actual football coming up September 4th. So, there'll be a lot of that. There'll be, I'm sure, name, image, likeness. That will be, I'm sure the comments from today will carry over tomorrow. Will probably be the big story of tomorrow is exactly, what does he mean by all this, and how close are they to 7 figures with Bryce Young?
Yeah.
So, I'm sure something else. There'll be another controversy today. We'll figure out something to talk about. It's always something.
Oh, there's always something. But again, media days, I know that we're here kind of hyping it up because it's exciting to get with these guys and obviously hear from them. There's not always a ton of headlines that comes out of it, but certainly, some fun moments and, just to kind of go back. And of course, we have a lot of these interviews and whatnot on our social media, Facebook, YouTube. You can go check those out with coaches, players, all the likes. And of course, we'll have all those tomorrow as well. Before we go, Michael, speaking of Nick Saban, speaking of Nick.
Good point.
Speaking of Nick, are you offended that I call you Michael? Would you be offended if you were a head football coach and I called you Michael? Or would you want to be called Coach Casagrande or Coach Cas or Coach Casa or
you could call me whatever
Coach
you'd
Big House.
like. You could call me whatever you'd like. Obviously, we're talking about the Deion Sanders news of the day and the walk-off moment at the SWAC media days and insisting that you don't call Nick Saban Nick or you'd get in trouble. You get cussed out.
So basically Deion Sanders, towards the end of his press conference, I guess someone said, hey, Deion asked a question and he was offended because he said, you don't ask Nick. You don't call Nick Saban Nick. So I want to be treated like Nick, essentially. Mm-hmm. So your thoughts and takeaways from that moment.
Of course, this is
something I know you are super thrilled to talk about.
An evergreen topic that comes up every 6 months or so of whether or not Nick Saban appreciates being called Nick or coach or whatever. And it seems to be a very hot topic on the social mediums. I don't think he cares. I've called him Nick. I've called him coach. I've called him whatever. I've never heard one word, one way or the other, about what to address him. It's silly. It's stupid. We do it all the time. we'll do it again in 6 months when this comes up again. I guess it's just what we do.
Hey,
And
we'll have to have a word with Dion when
Coach.
Coach. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Dion.
We'll have to have a word with him. Hey, Michael, we appreciate it. Obviously, another big day. SEC Media Days Day 2. Looking forward to Day 3. We'll hear from Alabama tomorrow. Again, check it out. All the social media channels. We got our guys here. Michael Casagrande, Mike Rodak. Tom Green was here. Gianna's been here. John Talty's been here. Joseph Goodman. We're all here. We're all here hanging out, doing our thing. So check out our website, AL.com, for all the stories as well as social media. And we also want to, once again, thank our sponsors for all of our coverage here at SEC Media Days this week.
Alabama has a record number of open jobs. Find yours at your local career center.